Hey, welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back to my YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe for new videos. I'm trying to put up at least once a day. At least. I'm sorry if I don't hit that, but I'm trying for you guys. So I want to actually do these kind of videos more often where I respond to some of the comments and the questions that I receive. And I'm trying to keep these out of the black narrative because I've never set out to be a black vlogger or just a black travel blogger. I want my information and the service that I do to you guys to be universal. I just want to help people fulfill their dreams of travel, exploring the world. But a lot of the things that come through my email and in the comment section of this vlog, of my blog, of my social media channels has a lot to do with race. And I want to read a comment that I just received for you guys on another video. It's on my computer, sorry. So here's the comment that was left on one of the videos, how I choose a country that I'm visiting, where I'll link it up there, where basically I go over how I pick what the next country is that I go to. Now, anybody who actually listened to the video or watched the video all the way through will understand the reasoning behind a lot of the ways that I choose my travels and why I go certain places and why I don't go certain places. But this person said, and I get this kind of comment all the time. It says, being a man of color, you should be ashamed that you have very few countries checked off in Africa. We should take notice of that. Being that you have traveled to over 80 countries, you should, and then he goes off into a whole Hotep Black Power tangent that I don't have the patience for right now. So I wanted to address this in several different ways, but I just want to start with this. So comments like these, they're part of a larger narrative. It's not necessarily travel related. It's this bullshit Hotep back to Africa fake Marcus Garvey crap that's been just pervasive in our community amongst African American men, where people don't realize, and I get in a lot of trouble for saying this, I'm not African. We are not African. We're African American. We're descendants of Africans, but we are wholly American. Our cultural identity is American. I will never sit here and disrespect the things that happened during apartheid in South Africa by coming to be, oh, my people are from South Africa. If I don't have friends and family I can directly reach out to in South Africa anymore. Like, slavery was abolished in 1865, almost 150 years ago. I personally don't have anybody back in Africa I can reach back to. Now, times are changing where we have the genealogy trees and Ancestry.com, where African Americans can really reach back to African African nations, and reconnect with family members. But a vast majority of us can't, and we don't. But we do have family in the United States. Our cultural identity is American. I am not a product of apartheid or the Rwandan genocides or the shit that's going on in Libya or Liberia. Like, I'm a product of Reaganomics, systemic racism in the United States, Jim Crow, the civil rights movement. That is who I am. That is my identity. Everything about me is American. My identity is American. So when somebody says that, oh, you aren't really representing your people because you don't go to Africa more often, it's total bullshit. Because I have so many friends from Africa who will tell you the same thing. We are distinctly different. We speak differently. Our palates for food are different. The way we hear and think and interact and love and hate, they're different. We have different cultural backgrounds. And it's funny that a lot of this criticism that I receive for not going to Africa more often comes from people who've never been to fucking Africa. I've been to 6 African nations. I've spent time in South Africa. I've spent time in Nigeria. I've spent time in Tanzania. I've spent time in a few African nations, and I absolutely love them. I have no hate or animosity for African nations at all. But there are reasons I haven't gone. So for somebody to criticize me for not going more often or questioning my blackness is fucking ridiculous. So this brings me to something I've been wanting to address quite a bit. It's travel elitism. especially within the Black community or African American community. Recently, there's been a huge influx of new Black travelers or travelers of color. And I wouldn't even really say it's been a huge influx. It's just more public now with social media. This whole idea of a Black travel movement, it's not really a Black travel movement because we've been traveling. Like, again, the statistics, the numbers are still relatively low by comparison, but we've been out here. Like, we've been traveling. Hell, I've been traveling since what, 2002 when I joined the military, off and on, and then leisure travel, military travel, and I met a lot of people on the road. The difference is that the media has finally just picked up on it, thanks to, you know, people like the Madness, Black and Abroad. I'll put a link to all these different organizations out there. But with that came this elitism that's fucking amazing to me, where oh you only got 2 passport stamps. Oh, that's it. Oh, you ain't really doing it. Like, it's, oh, you ain't been to Asia yet? Oh, you ain't been here yet? It's crazy that within our community, the community has largely been marginalized and treated like shit when it comes to representation in travel. Still, look, think about it. How often do you look at the Travel Channel or National Geographic or the History Channel or the Food Network and you see people of color represented in any way other than a servant or a fucking sidekick or a maid or something like that? How often do you see that? You know, Samantha Brown, Anthony Bourdain, like, who are phenomenal at what they're doing. I absolutely love them. But who else do we have? Yet within our community, we have this elitism where if you don't have a certain number of stamps, you're not part of the cool kids club, or if you don't go to Africa enough, then you're not really traveling. It's absolutely ridiculous and something that has to change. For me, for somebody to criticize the way I travel, where I travel, I don't really care. You ain't paying for my travel, so I don't care what you think. But it's those 16, 17-year-old kids that I worry about who say, oh, well, I gotta go to Africa. And I'm going to get to the reason why this is ridiculous in a second, but shouldn't we be promoting travel anywhere internationally for young African American, Latino, poor socioeconomic kids, as opposed to telling them where they're supposed to go or where they should go just because of the color of their skin? All right, so we're getting a little bit ranty, so I'm going to step back and I'm going to talk about the real reason that I don't go to Africa too much. The number one reason that I don't go to Africa that often is the cost is prohibitive. I mean, it is really expensive to fly to Africa, and once you're in African nations, it is expensive as hell just to get around. Like, I can fly to South Africa. A flight to South Africa from Europe is going to cost you one way around $600. But if I'm in Europe and I want to go from Romania to Berlin, I could probably find a ticket for $20. I saw a ticket yesterday for $12 from Bucharest to Berlin. From London to Turkey, you could probably find a ticket for around $50. If you're in Asia, you can fly from Bangkok to Taipei for less than $100. You can fly from Tokyo to Malaysia for around $150. But African nations are so damn disconnected. The travel industry is absolute chaos in Africa. It's prohibitive for me. Like, now if a client reached out to me and said, hey, just like SA Tourism, I went to South Africa for 2 weeks because South Africa's tourism invited me. They paid for my flight, they paid for my accommodations, and it was a phenomenal trip. South Africa is top 5 on my favorite countries in the world. But had they not invited me, I probably still wouldn't have gone. Traveling in Africa is expensive as hell. It's just the reality of it. All right, so the last point is it's a little sensitive. Some countries just aren't ready for us. Like, they not us African Americans or Latinos or Americans, but tourists in general. They just aren't ready. A lot of African nations are just in a state of disarray, and even the ones that are relatively safe don't have a tourism industry that's ready. And I just personally, I travel a certain way, a certain style, and when I start to research on places that I go, if I don't feel like I'm going to enjoy myself or be comfortable there, then I'm just not going to go. And it's sad because there are a lot of specific places I would like to go, but I won't because of the infrastructure or the lack of infrastructure. Like I have I'm not about to stand on the side of the road and wait 20 hours for a bus that might not ever come. Like it's nothing but horror stories. Now, granted, I'm on the project to become the first African American to go to every country in the world. So I'm going to Africa. There's no question, absolutely no doubt within the next couple of years, I'm going to travel African nations extensively. But for personal and leisure travel, not right now, not yet. So that's it. That's why I don't travel to Africa more often. It really comes down to the cost is prohibitive, and a lot of places really aren't ready. And I think it definitely is important for people to go to African nations more often to really understand what's going on in African nations. Now, it's frustrating to see a lot of the news coverage about African nations, especially the few that I've been to, and the information that's being sent back home to the West is just false. It's just absolutely wrong. But I mean, I think it's going to take time. It's going to take time not only for a lot of these countries to catch up from a tourism standpoint, but for people to be more comfortable, tourists to be more comfortable traveling to these nations. It's a lot simpler to go to a place with a built-in infrastructure like France or Spain or even Colombia, Brazil, or Mexico that have these built-in infrastructures that are, for the most part, relatively safe. When you only have a set amount of money and a set amount of time, as opposed to taking a risk on, say, Zimbabwe, a place that's not quite frequented by Americans and doesn't necessarily have the same infrastructure as these other places. So again, thank you so much for watching. I know I got a little ranty in this one. I didn't mean to offend anybody. If you're offended, please comment below. Tell me why you're offended. I always reply, as you guys can see. Don't forget to share, subscribe, and yeah, let me know what you guys think. So thank you so much. I'll catch you guys later.